Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Come with me as we step into the deep dark forest of fear, and let us pray we see sunrise in the morning. As ever, I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further. And of course, don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The LBL Type 3. All roads lead to vengeance. Let's get straight into that. This isn't going to be one of those pretty Twilight type stories of werewolves and vampires. No. This, I confess from the get-go, is a deeply disturbing journey spiraling into an endless cavern of decrepit torture, darkness, and violent bloodlust. Do not say I didn't warn you. It's probably best if you let the little pups make their way out of the room as I begin my story, my death, my hunger, my... It was a cold-ass windy night in the LBL as I was coming down Route 274 heading towards Confederate in my big rig. I was happy as a tired, overworked trucker could be with his beat-up old truck, the heater of which had a possession of its own, meaning it rarely ran for more than 5 minutes at a time. My breath fogging my glasses as I pushed on further down the mountainside route. Here there were nothing but game and mountainous forests for miles and miles. It was something I had grown accustomed to over my 25-year career as a truck driver. The dark and loneliness of the great mountains and hills to the forest and tundra were part of the parcel of the job. I mean, sure, you could have a companion bunk with you. Guys had their wives and shit, but I never really been one for the ladies. No, my eyes were always on the money. Anyway, as I was saying, I was making my way down the mountain, following long snaking bends in the sheer roads. I was making good time for my last drop-off and then looking forward to heading on home for 6 months at my hunting cabin in Kentucky. Unfortunately, God had other plans for me that morning. As I made the beginning of a turn into a bend in the road, something was tailing me. Something large and dark suddenly became apparent in my wing mirror. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me. After all, I had been on the road since 7 p.m. the night before. It was now just past 4:25 a.m. I continued my path and lost sight of it as the next bend in the road was coming up. As I made my gradual turn into the bend, again, something large and dark suddenly shot into view in my other wing mirror. Now these roads are notorious killers. Black ice ain't no joke, especially with 45 tons of rig under your ass. And so I continued to concentrate on the job at hand. Bang! Something suddenly hit the passenger side door, the truck making a loud screeching sound as the rubber tore up on the wheels as they smoked and I swerved across the lanes, fishtailing a 50-plus foot trailer and truck. But miraculously, I gained control as the road once again straightened out. I breathed a huge sigh of relief as sweat already beaded its way down my cold forehead. I looked in my mirrors once more to see what in the hell was going on. Was something chasing me? And what was that bang? I didn't have to wait long for my answer to knock once more. As the road ahead obviously had to bend at some point, I began working my way through the gears to slow a little ahead of the turn. Immediately, it was back in my mirror, and this time on my side again. Only this time it stayed there so I could get a good old look at him. A shot of cold, spiteful ice ran through my entire nervous system. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. At first I thought it was a crazy man, but then I noticed how it was running. How it seemed to take huge leaping strides, rather than laying down 1,000 steps in a second. I also noticed how it suddenly was gaining on me. Its facial features suddenly lighting up in my truck's red lights. I touched the brake to get a better look, and man, did I regret that. It was very suddenly apparent that this man was not a man but something out of my nightmares. He had long pointy ears on top of its head and was covered in long black fur from head to toe. Eyes that glared back at me a yellow to reddish hue. His canines, God, and they were gleaming in the rear light's reflection. Easily 6 or 7 inches long. A wild mane like tuft surrounded his shoulders and head like a mighty African lion. I instantly knew that I was in trouble, as long plumes of breath bellowed out from its maw. This was trouble that no man should ever have to witness or endure, and unfortunately for me, it would be only the beginning of my depraved journey, a journey bathed in regrets, pain, confusion, and of course, violence. Chapter 2. What in God's name? With my chest pounding, eyes wild switching from watching my wing mirrors to the road ahead of me, I hit the bend in the road, realizing at the last moment I had overdone the gas a little. The rig groaning under the strain like an enormous blue whale, tires spinning on the slick tarmac. "Come on, you son of a bitch, I swear! Don't let me down now!" I screamed, holding onto the steering wheel for dear life. But it was no use. I needn't have tried. I may as well have just rolled the damn rig off the sheer cliff to my side then and there. The pace of the beast was something otherworldly, a supernatural speed and agility as it got closer and closer to my door. It was mere feet away from my door to the cab, and things suddenly seemed to slow down, all at once. Out of nowhere, there was a spark of light in my mirror, and then again, and then I saw he was slashing at the walls of the tires, his razor-sharp claws slicing through the layers of rubber and woven steel. And then my world turned upside down as 3 tires blew out on the driver's side of the trailer, and then 4, 5. The enormous rig shifted to 40 degrees onto one side of the wheels, and then slammed back down onto the passenger side once more, and this time blowing out the remaining tires on the rough side of the road, laden with rocky outcroppings and roots. And then the rig shifted violently once more as I looked to my side as the beast ripped the cab door off at its hinges, and the vehicle barrel rolled up and off the roadside to a 100+ foot drop below, surrounded by pine, dense forest. Our eyes met for that endless time that seemed like a lifetime, but was surely only a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. Our eyes met as the beast boomed a hefty growl from deep in his chest, before reaching in with a sinister smile on his face, eyes wild with fury and intent to feast soon on my flesh, to bathe in my hot blood amongst the frosty pines. As shattered glass fragments blitzed their way into every part of my neck and face, the titanic wailing of the rig's bent and broken frame soaring through the dark night's air, the grinding sound of the engine wild as the gas was to the floor as I readied myself for both impact and the beast's frightful jaws. Right before the impact with the forest below, the creature sank its teeth deep into my shoulder and neck, and searing white-hot pain shot through my entire system. I punched and tore at its thick mane that seemed impenetrable to my hardest of my attacks, and then, bam! Everything went black. As I sat and laid in that forest, miles from anywhere even remotely rural or considered modern standard, my body was broken and mind was in another universe for an unknown amount of time, but during that time I lived 1,000 lives, all of which ended in the same terrible, tragic way. Ripped to shreds by that tyrannical brute, he who later I would find and learn of in many a battle, but for that moment, in between life and death, present and past, I was at his mercy, as were the ones I would love. He seemed to have no patience, no faith, no time for anyone other than himself, and yet still I felt a connection to him in some strange and yet still unknown way. And for the most part, though, he was nothing short of the devil himself. God knows my pain and suffering, yet he did not seem to care at that time. Yet another of life's lessons, I guess. Many of my memories of that strange amount of time laid there in the crushed cab's corpse are melded into one another, all of which carried the same time and fact. No matter how I tried to best his plans of slaughter, it would be of no use. I would be far into the forest, locking up the family cabin as my wife put the kids to bed, only to see him burst from the brush and roar, beating his barrel-like chest in a salute of the slaughter. I would run for my rifle and yell for Alice to grab the kids and get to the cellar, but every time, each time, he would smash the front door into splinters and race after us, tearing through myself as Alice shut and tried to lock the cellar door. But each scenario, I would try something different. It would have little to no effect. Even if we made it all the way safely to the cellar and through the hatch to the truck out back, it's like he would just spring from every corner of every dark space, laying waste to my imaginary family and myself in the crudest of fashions. Throats torn and body parts chewed and thrown all over, grabbing handfuls of the entrails and guts and smearing himself and any walls in the near vicinity. Even now as the beast I have been forced to become. His style had no honour, no taste, no mercy either. And there was a reason he was so ominous in the werewolf world. He was thought to be one of the oldest alive and kicking, taught intensively by the original werewolf of us all, the lycanthrope who loved slicing throats, Cain. My creator and his furious appetite for being as spiteful and as sick as possible during any of his hunts or attacks came from Cain's strict obsession with anything remotely satanical or would cause mental torture. Shock value was always centre of Cain's biggest tales. Many a cold night around a crackling campfire with other travellers of the dark nights told of Cain's darkest and most unheard of adventures into the sick and downright awful. His hunts were the stuff of legend, and many millionaires paid handsomely not to end up on his list of targets, or some would even join in, as in some odd cases. My creator, on the other hand, as I said, had his own blood and bile-soaked past, and tales of him tearing the doors off high school buses and making his way slashing heads off of children left and right, arms ripped from their tiny sockets and thrown across the seats, or attacking sewer workers all over Vegas and California, their bodies never to be recovered. Or maybe you have heard of his attacks down in Louisiana, dragging hunters and fishermen to their deaths deep into the swamps and leaving only a long, bloody trail that the papers said ran for more than a mile. Believe me, there are so many that if you took a world map and drew from each attack site to the next, it would no doubt look like a spider web. He must be at least 300 years old and seems to know every trick in the book of tricks. His name was simply Ivan. Chapter 3. The road you take has many ghosts. Let's get straight into that. I awoke a couple of times, only to slip back into unconsciousness. But eventually I gained my composure and took in my surroundings. I was suspended some 20 or so feet in the air, hanging upside down by my seatbelt. Smoke and sparks from multiple sites of fire blew with the chilly night air. The forest was now silent, and as far as I could see, left or right, there was no sign of Ivan. The tree I was stuck in creaked and groaned under the immense destruction the rig had caused. Tree limbs lay all around, and the thick branch that was now skewered through the cab was cracked down the centre. It wouldn't hold for much longer. And so, with my head pounding and body broken, I tried to free myself from the wreckage. But soon it was clear that the lower half of my body was trapped under the dashboard of the cab. The steering wheel buckled and doubled over flat into my lap. I could feel the warm trickling of my blood as it ran down my destroyed leg. The sharp teeth of the hot steel cutting and nagging at my mind every other second. I tried to calm myself, gather my thoughts and breath before my next move. I freed the clip on my seatbelt and was about to move, but then I heard it. When at first I wasn't sure. It was so quiet, but then I focused in on the sounds I was hearing around me and took away the suspects the best I could, one by one. The nakedness of the conclusion was almost enough to make me empty my bowels right there and then. Somewhere, close by, came a cavernously deep rumbling, wet and sticky with a bubbling almost sound. I was perplexed, but then remembered how deeply Ivan had growled at me as we flew through the air. And this was the same, but more of a slumbering, breathy repetition. I searched all around, nervously started to hyperventilate when I suddenly saw where he was. And from my position in the twisted cab, Ivan lay some 30 feet away, lower to the forest floor, but apparently speared onto a short broken branch. I'm not sure if he broke the branch whilst hitting it, or it was already like that, but whatever. It was short and it did a great job, beautifully. He seemed peaceful, his enormous head hung lolling to one side. The horrendous wound and branch ripped right through his right shoulder and down to the top of his abdomen. Many dark red lines of thick blood running their way down his barrel chest and stomach. Arms long and thick, if not thicker than the brutish tree limb that had embedded in his mighty frame. He was covered in a long, coarse black hair that seemed to glisten with a silver sheen in the sparse moonlight. His lung must have been punctured, if not completely destroyed, hence the bubbling and wheezing I was tuned into a moment prior. I didn't want to wake him, but I certainly didn't want to remain stuck in this frozen nightmare. I cursed myself for not bringing my shotgun and following the law. Slowly I tried to heave the heavy and jagged dash and frame up off my lap and strained under the agonizing pain that it produced, finding little grip without cutting my hands to ribbons. And still I persisted. An unnatural drive overtook me, and to my shock, it started to give a little. I continued all the while keeping my eyes focused on him. His breathing was heavily laboured now, but still seemingly unconscious. Aha! I gasped aloud and then winced as blood rushed to the wound in my right thigh, coupled with the thought of that beast awakening. Confused at my newfound ability to bend metal, I finally freed myself from under the dashboard. I was in a bad shape, but still alive and breathing. Quickly and as carefully as I could muster, I made my way down and onto the buckled tree trunk and shimmied my way down from branch to stump, again all the while trying to maintain visual on him. I leapt the last 8 or so feet down to the forest floor that was surprisingly thick with dead pine needles. A thought crossed my mind for a second. I considered rendering him nothing more than a bloody pulp of bone and flesh, with a large and crudely knobbled club-like limb laying to my left. But alas, I chose to make my escape and use my time ahead of him should he ever awaken from his deep, gravely slumber. And from where I was stuck in a cab, some 30 or so feet in the air, I could make out a luminescence in the distant horizon to my southwest. Sure, it could be miles and miles away, whatever it actually was. No doubt there would be many other predators between here and that location. But what choice did I really have? I knew how desolate and wild these mountains were. I had seen the bears and mountain lions. Heck, I'd seen their leftovers too on many a mountainside. Some hung up high in the trees. This was no place for a human, and so there was no humans for miles and miles. But again, I had no choice. For hours and hours I trekked and stumbled my way blindly through the desolate and silent pine forest. I saw no fauna, I heard next to nothing of the entire journey. It was like the inhabitants of that mountain were either no longer here, nor eating, nor sleeping, or in the rest, or they were quite literally dead. It mattered little, as I gasped for breath and my head spun from blood loss and no doubt shock that had slowly settled in. I had to find shelter soon, and it was obvious the weather was getting worse by the minute. It was a full-on blizzard out, and the roads would be shut down at the bottom of the mountain. Carelessly walking into a black and white void became almost nauseous as I fumbled blindly forward with the wind wailing around my ears and back of my neck, down my spine to my lower back. I finally crested a high ridge and could make out in the distance some 10 or so miles, maybe less. And there was my salvation. The luminescence was from a small remote as fuck town. Barely even 100 or more buildings, all circled around a town square. Very abruptly, an angered, painful howl erupted into the night sky from my rear. He was close, but still some distance away, I hoped. And so, I grabbed my shit, gritted my teeth, cursing aloud to the gods above for my luck. Okay, I get it. First my wife left me because she wasn't happy, and she takes my damn dog. Now, I'm getting hunted by a damn dog. Whose idea was this, huh? I screamed, and soon regretting the foolishness for giving him any clue to my location. Alright, if this is how it's gonna be then, let's get to it, yeah? I muttered under my breath as I continued to try and find a spot to hide or get to that town. Either one was better than the other option, and stay out here in the vast, dark forest and meet an end like no one should ever have to endure. Death by lycanthrope is something that dark, morbid legends are born off of. These dogs don't just kill, they enjoy every freaking second of it, which makes them all the more of a pain in the ass and more sinister and cruel, in my opinion. Biting cold wind burned my face and hands as I struggled with the terrain, and my mind was racing for any solution to my impending doom. But alas, there was nothing I could see that would protect me or keep me from that beast's mighty jaws. My head spun and my vision kept blurring in and out of focus. I must have sustained a concussion in the crash. I had to find shelter, and fast. As I made my way down a steep and rocky decline into another hollow, the luminescence of the small town in the distance was swallowed by the hill in front of me. The terrain at the bottom became boggy and swamp-like, with long grasses and hogweed snagging and tangling around my feet and arms, as I stumbled and tripped my way through what now was almost complete darkness, as the canopy above and vegetation around me grew thicker and thicker. Quickening my legs' pace as best I could, and a rancid nausea overtook me, and with another spell of dizziness I wouldn't be able to hold out much further. Another deep, guttural howl rang out across the mountains, and I wanted nothing more than to be home right then and there, or see a damn cop if I had to. I took a few more steps and then fell once more, and this time I finally succumbed to my injuries and the immense exhaustion. Chapter 4. A Lucky Escape. Let's get straight into that. As I lay there in a state of unconsciousness, lost in the vast darkness between reality and dreaming, the cold wet ground and weeds between my fingers, and drops of rain falling in sheets down to meet my face and motionless body, I could smell the forest's piney and earthy smells, and its energy coursed through my body like electricity. I swear, either I was dead or this was an epiphany. I then saw a young lady on a dark, windy night, sat watching TV in her grandmother's trailer, a younger sibling on the floor in front of her whilst they watched the TV. It was like I was there in the room with them. I could smell supper cooking on the stove. I could hear the TV show host rattling on about goodness knows what. And then I heard it. Boom, boom, boom. Came from somewhere in the trailer. The two girls shot each other glances of concern and confusion. Again it happened. Boom, boom, boom. The eldest girl got to her feet ever so slowly, seemingly focusing on the outside of the trailer. Her younger sibling now whimpering loudly as tears streamed down her cheeks. Shh! The elder girl scolded her younger sibling with eyes wide open with fear. I think there's something outside, she whispered as she slowly crept towards the window. A low growl sounded from somewhere close by, and the crunching of dead leaves and dull thuds of footfall on the deck and outside the trailer again came. Again the youngest whispered, whilst noisily sniffling back a snotty nose. Shh! Again she was scolded. I could now hear the girls' heartbeats clanging in their chests as whatever was outside the paper-thin trailer walls got closer and closer to the window. Boom, boom, boom. The eldest girl gradually made her way over to where the window above the kitchen counter met with the door to the decking. The girl, expecting to see a raccoon or possum, ignored the glass door and leaned forward to look out at the window. Another heavy thud sounded to her left side, and she glanced almost in reaction to the noise, more than a thought. What stood peering in with no more than a couple of millimeters of framed glass door between it and the girls was a ferocious canine creature, almost like what had attacked me hours earlier, but seemingly older, or possibly, I don't know, natural looking. What attacked me was more mutated looking than something of God's creation. And still, the sight was incredibly unnerving as the girl and the beast locked eyes. She gasped aloud, "Whoa!" causing her younger sibling to scream, "Ah!" which in turn caused the beast to roar and hit the side of the trailer. It kicked the damn trailer almost off its footing, and leapt on two legs off the decking, and then vaulted quickly back on all fours, back into the tree line some 40 or so yards away. Boom, boom, boom. Again came the loud noise against the trailer, and the girls gasped as they thought another of the creature's friends might be lingering outside too. But it turned out to be the damn old apple tree, some steps off of the decking. The dog man had been eating the apples. I guess he decided stealth wasn't on his highest regard, and so chose to shake the damn tree instead. And seconds later, the little old grandma came stomping through her bedroom with a 30-06 rifle ready to murk somebody. And suddenly reality smacked me in the face once more as I regained consciousness and opened my eyes. I felt weightless for some strange reason. I also felt like I was being rocked from side to side. Was I on a boat? What the hell? I thought to myself. As my vision cleared and I was able to lift my head up a little, I could see a woman with long red hair, clearly equipped with some heavy-duty firepower. She was dressed head to toe in black combat gear, night vision goggles strapped to her head, and she was carrying a couple of rifles over her shoulder and a Sig Sauer 45 on her waist holster. Who are you?" I croaked through my frigid throat. She either ignored me or was concentrating on something else, as there was no response. "Think you missed us, Mum?" a young man's voice said softly. "Be quiet, child, or you're leading right to us." What the hell was going on here? Why was there a kid here? Second of all, no. Wait. This lady looked an awful lot like the oldest girl from my unconscious dream. "He's stupid. He never would have guessed our spot," the boy complained again, seemingly not fazed by the forest's meaner predators. "Shh!" Again she scolded him, and this time I was sure it was her of those same eyes grew wide with fear for what seemed might happen should whoever or whatever they are hiding from return. Okay, the boy replied, looking a bit sheepishly at his mother's reactions. "How's that splint coming?" she asked the boy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when I remembered my badly injured leg. And good old Mother Nature added a little more pain to freshly remind me of how cute the nervous system can be. "All right, big guy, just hold your breath. We've got one more thing to do and you're good to go," said the unknown child as he leaned over me and secured a rope over and around my leg before quickly drawing it tight in one hard tug. "Whoa!" I screamed as searing hot pain shot through my body, and he tried to cover my mouth with his hand. "Too late. Great, just great." The woman scolded me this time, and with those eyes that said, "You done messed up, mister." And without another word said, she stepped over to me and gum-butted me in the forehead, knocking me unconscious once more. I mean, this was a rescue mission, right? Anyway, I can't complain as she saved my life that night. They both did, actually. And by the time I came to again, I was on a stretcher and I was in the back of a pickup as we hurtled down the mountainside road. I was bouncing from one side of the bed to the other several times, having the wind knocked out of me. Came bursting above the revving of the truck's engine. He was back. I could see tree limbs flying off into the air in various directions, his immense power clearly making light work of the trees and thicket. "Take him out, Owen!" the lady screamed as she fought to gain control of the vehicle as it bounced and launched from huge crests in the road. Suddenly, as we took a long right-hand bend, a huge black-clawed hand came up and over the tailgate of the truck, his roars making my chest and insides vibrate. "Go, go! He's on us!" I shouted as we came out of the turn and the truck began to pick up momentum once more. Now, his enormous head and top half of his frame began climbing up and into the bed of the truck. Bam! A heavy-duty 50 cal rifle round went off above my head from the cab rear window, the smoking end of the barrel firing again and again as red-hot lead slugs slammed into the torso of the beast. It raised one hand and arm to shield its face from the onslaught, and then click, click. "It's jammed," said Owen as he tried to clear the barrel and shoot again, but nothing worked. The werewolf beast, again getting his composure back, began climbing back into the bed of the pickup, a mere few feet away from my legs. "Pass me a gun," I shouted, raising my hand expectantly. "Here," Owen replied, passing me a 50 cal Lapua. He was almost over me when our eyes locked, and I could see the devilish anticipation that was building in this beast's mind. He could not wait to get his gnarly sharp fingers and claws into my tender thigh, to rip out my throat and bathe in my hot, steaming blood. "Not today, Fido!" I screamed before unleashing hellfire on its ugly arse. The recoil and rapport from the Lapua was something else, I tell you. I saw the first few rounds slam into its shoulder and chest, tearing and ripping muscle from bone. One round in particular went straight through the back of him. In doing so, the demonic beast fell from his clawed grip on the truck and rolled off down the embankment to our left, smashing through the trees and branches as it did so. And with that, it was over. We hit the black flat-top a few miles down the road, and I finally let out a sigh of relief. And soon, once again, darkness consumed me as I fell into a deep slumber once more. Chapter 5. Alicia, Owen, and Wayne. Let's get straight into that. A number of days and nights passed by until around a week after I woke up, I was pretty much in and out of it. From my patchy conscious state, I could make out I was now inside a home of sorts, laid up in a warm, clean bed. A large window in front of me showed swaying pines that towered way up and out of my viewpoint. An old radio crackled in and out of reception, much like my current physical state. My head throbbed and my throat and mouth were parched. Looking around from my bed, I saw a flask of water and stretched out to grab a hold of it, but I was soon unable to move any further as I was evidently chained and cuffed to the wall or bed frame. Again, pain shot through my entire system. "Hello?" I croaked. I soon heard footsteps coming down the long hallway outside of the room. A short woman with red or deep brown long hair walked in, soon followed by who I would later learn was her son. The boy passed me a glass of water as the woman helped me sit up and sip from the cool glass. "Good to see you're awake again. You're safe now," she said as I thirstily drank the cool liquid. "I'm Alicia, and this is my boy, Owen. You're sure lucky we were passing through," she added. Why, where are we? Why am I chained?" I protested wearily. "You are in my home, and you're safe, for now," she responded while shooting Owen an unnerving glance. "Yeah, bro, you're kind of the luckiest unlucky guy we've ever met," Owen added cheerfully. "But why am I chained?" I questioned, frustrated by the whole situation. It was just too much for me to deal with, and yet the worst was yet to come. "Okay, listen, we patched you up pretty good, but..." She paused momentarily. "But we found something else whilst we were doing so." "Okay, well what?" I asked, now with a feeling of doom building in my gut. "Do you remember what attacked your truck? Like any recollection at all?" Alicia quizzed. "Yeah, absolutely I remember. How could anyone forget something like that?" "Okay, that's good. Now, have you seen the movies, surely, or heard the old folk tale about mythical beasts in the swamps and forests?" she added. "Yeah, of course I have, but that's just the movies." You can't be seriously suggesting that was a damn werewolf. I huffed angrily at the absurdity of her suggestion. Alicia sat stone-faced with the same somber expression on her face. Her eyes still met mine. You are joking, right? I added cautiously. No, mister, I am not joking, she said with an air abbreviation. In fact, take a look for yourself, she said as she leaned closer and undone some of my bandages around my shoulder and neck. Meanwhile, Owen had got up and grabbed a large mirror. Shock and sickness shot through me as my eyes beheld a sight in front of them. Me, or rather, the new me. A large set of scars ran their course across my body, and most evidently my face. A set of 4 claw marks covered my upper torso, and a large nasty bite mark sat proudly on my neck. The beast had clearly taken chunks out of me, the bite still wet from the infection, oozing a strange black liquid. I'm afraid we did the best we could, but it looks like the infection has set in. You will likely transform on the next full moon. Then after that, you will either be dead, as the beast claims you're conscious, or so. Or you will win that battle, and will have the power to turn any time. Most, though, don't survive the attack, let alone the infection or battle for control with the beast inside of them, Alicia finished with a sincere tone. I was stumped. Never in my existence did I think something like this could happen. I mean, like I said, that's only in the movies, right? We can't trust you, bro. Not right now. You're a liability, Owen added dryly. Well, there's a few organizations that will put you to a bad use just to help fill their pockets or gain more power, remarked Alicia as Owen nodded in agreement. Listen, we know you didn't want for this to happen or intentionally get caught up in it all. But what you are or what you might become is a force of nature and the paranormal. It's a lot to explain, but in essence, from what we have heard and seen, you are now under the power of a powerful and angry SOB demon. One who wants to gain full control of your mind, body and spirit. You must fight this battle or fall into an oblivion of animalistic rage and hunger. Your very being will become enraged with murderous thoughts, and your actions will have the most violent and bloodthirsty consequences, she said with pure panic in her eyes. But I wouldn't hurt a fly. I mean, come on. Sure, it was surreal, but werewolves? Covert organizations? I'm not buying it. I fired in defense of my odd and yet life-changing experience. She scoffed. You wouldn't, but we're not just talking with you now, are we? You have to let me go. You can't keep me chained up like an animal, she asked sarcastically. Yeah, listen, bud. I don't know you, and had I known you had this wound, virus, whatever it is, I would have just put a bullet in your brain at the side of the road. It's Owen here who saved you. He's under the impression we could perhaps work together, and that maybe, just maybe, you might be one of the good ones. You see, there are stories, but many of them are old and few and far between. Stories of good lycanthrope people, whose heart was stronger than the beast, and so they controlled its formidable power for good. I was completely shocked by the last half an hour's conversation. I wanted to rewind time, find another route around the bloody mountain, but alas, I am only a man now cast to the winds of fate. We spent the rest of the evening chatting about the werewolf virus, our lives previous to meeting, and soon the hours flew by. I learned that Alicia had come under attack from a creature called a dogman many years prior, and she had been traumatized at first, but as she grew up to be a woman and then a mother, her will to fight back kicked in. She took the fight to the creature stalking her home, eventually running it off of her property, only to appear here and there throughout the years, but always more cautiously. Owen, much like his mother, grew up encountering these creatures up close and personal, and sometimes a little too close. The kid was a real whiz at computer technology and shared a passion for firearms with his mother. Alicia was happily married too, and the guy was apparently still back on the mountain, or at least in the LBL region, tracking and trying to take down my adversary, my creator. Wayne's passion for tracking and killing problem cryptids. And that's how he and Alicia met one night out in Michigan. It's probably best if Wayne doesn't meet you just yet, as he is likely to not give you the benefit of doubt that you'll pull through this transformation, said Alicia with a warning tone. He has a bad history with werewolves in general, so you're not going to be his next best friend, but hopefully you pull through this, and he understands that it wasn't your choice. Hopefully, that is, she added. Yeah, Dad can be a real hard ass sometimes, but he means well. I think you got it in you to win this, bro. You gotta fight, though, Owen said with more optimism than I could have mustered at that time. So how much longer do I have to stay like this for? I mean, I understand now the worry, but please, I can't stay chained up like this. It's nuts, I commented. You got just under 2 weeks, bud, and then the first transformation will take place. God willing, you survive it and win the battle for control. Otherwise, I'll have to put that bullet through your head, she added whilst chucking an unspent bullet into my lap. Good night, bud. Try get some rest and we'll see you in the morning, she said as both Owen and her got up and left the room. I was then left alone and utterly in despair for what lay ahead of me. The next week I spent fighting a building battle with my own mind. At night I was tormented by cold sweats, violent thoughts and nightmares and flashbacks to that fateful night. Each morning I would awake in agonizing pain as my bones had semi-shifted during my restless nightly state. It was almost as if my body was getting ready for the big change. 3 mornings on the trot, I awoke with my left shoulder dislocated. Alicia and Owen both resetting it in time and time again. Their care and trust of me was second to none. I don't know why she trusted her son's judgment. I could only guess she knew how wise beyond his years he really was. How much foresight he possessed when most would not. I owe him my life. The days passed by frankly in a blur of terror and pain, but pass they did. And soon I was all too aware that the warning they had given me was in fact true. A harsh truth, but a truth nevertheless. My appetite had completely vanished, and I was restless to say the least. My mind was slowly fragmenting between beast and human, and I could feel my blood boil with rage for no apparent reason, and Alicia kept an observant eye on me and the strength of my shackle fixings. I'm sorry, she would say as she left every night, leaving me to the silence of loneliness and searing pain of the virus to keep me company. As the days turned into a week and the final week before the new full moon drew closer, I tried to remember their words. There are stories of good lycanthropes, few and far between, but still, some did exist. And so, others had faced this path before me, and won. I decided one such morning of pain and sickness that I was tired of the fear, tired of what ifs and how. It was time I made my own destiny. If I could use my soon-to-be powers and ability for the greater good, then that is what I will do. The night of the new full moon came around much quicker than I had expected, and my body heaved in expectation of the transformation ahead. Heavy nausea racked my body, and bloodthirsty thoughts troubled my conscience. Wayne was due back to check in with Alicia the coming Wednesday, and she wanted me either out or ready to help her in their fight against unruly cryptids. Would I be able to take control of my bestial form? I did not know, but I was darn well going to give it my all. Chapter 6. The New Moon. Let's get straight into that. Alicia asked Owen to leave the room and get washed up and ready for bed, and he did as he was told, giving me one final nod of support and a thumbs up. I returned said nod and looked at the ceiling. My fingernails and toenails now ached and throbbed, as the transformation was merely a few hours away. My teeth also now bleeding at the gums and aching just as much as my body. She drew a stool closer to me and took a deep sigh. Well, tonight's the night, buddy. How you feeling? I looked at her with an expression of, really? Oh, right. Yeah, I guess not good, she added. Listen, bud, I don't want you to feel like you have to go through this, you know? Whilst you still have a choice, if you like. She paused. What I'm trying to say is, nobody would blame you if you blew your brains out before the transformation. In fact, that's what most would probably do if they were faced with the same situation, she said with a warm smile and the nicest tone to her soft voice. Yeah, I thought about that too, sis. But you see, I can't do that. I remember you said there are some stories of good lycanthropes out there, in the pages of history and folklore. I guess I want to try and be one of those. One of those few, if I can, that is. I replied dryly. Okay, bud. I understand, and you know what? She asked with her eyes meeting mine. What? I replied. I think you can do it. I can see people's auras, and you, my fairy friend, have a warm and pleasant glow to yours. Even if it is a bit tainted by the beast's demonic traits. She laughed aloud. Her humour was like medicine I never knew I needed. Alicia got up slowly and walked over to the basement door before turning once more. You know, Owen believes you are one of the good ones. In fact, he bet his whole allowance that you would pull through, she said as she once again uttered, Good luck, and then opened the door and locked it behind her as she left. The minutes seemed to drag on and on as the hand of the clock on the wall ticked and tocked. As the last hour before midnight came, the new full moon shone so brightly I had to shield my eyes, and then the ticking turned to a dreadful and unbearable thumping that soon my heart was matching, and then, without warning, my shins cracked. My legs deformed backwards as my bones and flesh melded and shifted to accommodate my new, improved form. My spine was next, as it too made a god-awful crack and popping sound, and I collapsed onto my back, writhing in agony. My cries for help or mercy were unheard, although looking back now, I'm sure that both Alicia and Owen had heard every moment of my first transformation. My voice distorted and croaked into a deep and earthy growl, crossed with an agonizing demonic cry. I watched as my nails became long black claws and they shredded the wooden floor in front of me with no effort at all. Coarse hair burst from my flesh and covered my entire being. Equally, my muscle mass increased and my vision swam in and out of a reddish hue in my normal sight, until eventually it stayed the blood-red hue. I could see so much. I could see every dust particle, even the small microscopic fibres that made up my bed linen. And finally, getting to my canine knees, I took in a deep breath and howled violently into the night. The next few hours were spent in a battle for dominance of my psyche, with the animalistic demon possessing my mind and body for control, slashing and yanking at the wall of my chains, and at times I would salivate at the thought of breaking these chains that held my beast in place, taking the short trip upstairs and slaughtering Alicia and Owen where they stood. But then the real me, the me, would gain control, and I would think rationally. This battle went on and on for hours and hours, until the early morning sun's rays cast long ribbons of warm light in through the window. As it grew and the new day was birthed, my transformation was complete, and I slumped down in a crumpled heap, exhausted but wholly okay. And more to the point, I was me. It was a new day, and I was a new man. A new dark and winding road for me to truck. Time to meet up with this Ivan and settle the score. It was time to go back to the LBL, and ultimately time for vengeance. Wow, 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 wow. Why not another one? Wow. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I have writing it. Did plan to bring out a lot more. a lot further down the line, about a month or so's time. But with the pandemic hitting and everyone panicking, everyone's anxiety and depression through the roof, I feel if I can help out in any way at all, if it's just a little bit, with these stories as an escape, then I hope it did the trick for you guys. As you're all probably wondering, where's the guys from the farm? This isn't the LBL story that I remember. I'm building towards that, guys. I just wanted to bring in some new characters, add a bit more flavour to the story. Expect lots of cliffhangers and lots of shocking scenarios that I'm sure you didn't expect the direction of the story to take. I am aiming to hopefully bring out one of these, if not two of these, each week for you guys consistently. And hopefully we can build a long-standing, nail-biting series that you can all sink your teeth into. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag Team Fear? Of course, if you are a writer or have a story you'd like to share with us here on the show, or if it's a true or fictional piece, please do get it over to myself at the website, of course, which is www.DMTForestOfFEAR.com, and go to the submit story or report page. Or of course, if it's simpler, just hit me up on my email, which is dmtforestofear@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. As ever, guys and girls, much love and respect to each one of you. Thank you all so much for all the hours and time you spend listening to my sad little voice. And above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.